My brothers and sisters and my beloved confreres, I would like to greet you today with that special greeting style of India, Namaste. This particular greeting envisages the concept of the divinity. The divinity inside of me is saluting the divinity in you. Divinity meeting with each other is the sign of human relationship. Today, as we come together to have some reflection on the beauty of our own existence, I take Jesus as the reference point of our consideration. I'm always so much taken up by that particular passage in the Gospel of Luke, where the evangelist narrates about the loss of Jesus and later finding him in the temple. How old was Jesus at that time? He was just 12 years of age. At this time of his age, he was found missing, and Joseph and Mary were in terrible embarrassment. 3 days later, when they returned to Jerusalem, they found him in the temple. Jesus was in the temple. At that young age of his life, his teenage, he was found amidst the scholars and the Sadducees and the Pharisees, discussing and listening what they were sharing about their God experience. Another space of his life. One of the most interesting things that we notice in the Gospels, we never find much descriptions about the childhood, the teenage, or the youthhood of Jesus, except for those 3 years of his public ministry. And this is one of those rarest moments we encountered Jesus as a teenager, just at the age of 12. 12 means the time of fulfillment. But what matters to me today, and what I would like to share with you today, is the space that Jesus found in his personal life. When Mary, in all the curiosity of a mother, came and asked Jesus, "My son, why did you do this to me and to your father?" See that calm and gentle response of Jesus. "Don't you know that I must be in my Father's affairs?" I would call this as insight. A moment of illumination that emerged in the life of Jesus, which made the space of his life clear for him. He was never telling that he is not the son of Joseph and Mary. He is also the son of Joseph and Mary. But he has already set his priority very clear. The temple is my space. And this is where I am transformed. I am again challenged, and I am enlightened to find the space of my life, to understand I have better priorities left in front of me. There's a beautiful incident mentioned about the life of a sufi. He had a child who was just 8 years of age. This particular child, was very hyperactive. And he used to always irritate his father. In his anger, he used to tell him, "See, you are not good enough to be sent to the school. And you are not sick enough to be sent to the hospital as well. I do not know what I should do with you." Then the son, who was just 8 years of age, told his father, "Father, there is a beautiful story which my teacher told me in the school." And the story is like this. A farmer had a lot of eggs and he wanted to hatch these eggs. So he kept the eggs and the hen came and sat over it. But the farmer was very clever. He also kept one duck egg among the other eggs. Now, when the time came, all the chickens came out, so also the duckling. And the mother hen was going around with these chicken and the duck, not noticing the difference between them. One day, as they were going about pecking food here and there, they came near a small rivulet. As soon as the duck saw the water, the innate nature in it arose. It jumped into the water, to the surprise of the mother hen and the other chicken which were around it. And they were all crying and saying, "He is committing suicide! He is committing suicide!" And the duckling went along with the wave, moving up and down, finding its space in the proper time. The Sufi had nothing more to tell his young son. "I understand what you say." And I find Mary in the same place, standing before Jesus. "I know, my son, what you say. But the miracle is not over there." I said miracle. The miracle is that Jesus, having realized his space here, did not show any insistence that he should be here. Instead, when he understood that his mother and father were searching for him and are curious enough to take him along to home, he went with them. In the history of the humanity, in the history of the world, you will never find a most balanced man than Jesus himself. He knew, "I know my space. At the same time, I live in obedience to my parents, seeking and searching for that proper space of my life wherever I am placed." What a wonderful way of looking at one's own life. Yes, my brothers and my sisters, Luke the evangelist in that particular chapter 2, verses 51 and 52, explains something very specific about Jesus' growth as a teenager and as a youth. He grew in stature. He grew in wisdom. He grew in favor with God and with human beings. That means he had bodily growth, physical growth. He grew up in knowledge and wisdom. And he grew up also in prayer and in sociability, in relationship with God and human beings. I would like to share with you this particular beauty of the person of Christ. A holistic personality who has not lagged behind in his proper mature growth. 4 elements of his holistic growth. First, he grew up in stature. When we speak about the stature as such, we know it is all about the physique, the body. And the body is the one which embodies the human existence in its visibility. And we know very well, this body needs to be taken care with proper food, with proper drink, with proper lifestyle, meditation, yoga, physical exercises. We need to take care of this body, which the ancient people will call as the temple of God. Body is the most ancient temple. And in this temple, God dwells. And that's precisely, we are so enchanted by this bodiliness of our existence. Very often, we do not understand the mystery of the body. I always look back to that book of Genesis, where how God created human being is well narrated. It is said, it's a depiction, but at the same time, there is some intimacy in the creation of God. God shaped human beings from the mud. But at the same time, he did one thing that is very special. He breathed into his nostrils. My brothers and sisters, just think of this action of God. God breathed into the nostrils of the human being. That means God gave His presence to him, His life to him. When does one breath meets the other breath? In the most intimate moment of a person's life, when one is kissing the other. And that's the nearness of God in the life of a person. Our body is a temple of God. And that's where I always like this statement of St. Paul. Your body is a temple of God. Listen to that statement which Jesus made once. You destroy this temple. In 3 days' time, I will raise it up. And the evangelist very clearly mentions he was speaking about his body. Where God is present, you can never destroy its existence. And that exactly is that relationship that we have to make with our own bodies too. Accepting your bodiliness, your personality as you really are. You should be able to respect your body without misusing it. My dear brothers and sisters, there was a time when, at least people of my age would say, we were very curious about what is happening with our body, because we did not have much accessibility to this bodily existence and the clarity about its existence from someone else. Our teachers never told us what we should do with our body, how we should take care of us. Our schools were never mediums for us to understand our bodiliness. But today, a danger has crept in, more than what we experienced at that time. There is no more curiosity about our bodies. We have all vulnerable possibilities through the gadgets and media to expose ourselves and others as they really are in their bodiliness. Therefore, our curiosity leads to vulnerability. We must understand one thing. Sexuality in itself is not a misused term. Sexuality is the grace and the gift of God for a human being. But when we think in our bodiliness merely about genital sex, it is there that we begin to misuse ourselves. Just think about sexuality in this way. One temple is embracing another temple, not one inn searching for another inn. When my awareness that my body is a temple of God and the other whom I embrace in my arms is equally a temple of God, can I ever misuse another person? This is the beauty of the body. Body becomes an intimate realization of God's own presence in my life. There, sexuality becomes a gift, a procreative relationship. Yes, my brothers and sisters, we need to take ourselves into this level of our existence today. Consider our body as a gift of God and the temple of God. And when one temple embraces the other temple, God becomes more close to us. Yes, let's move on to the next level of the growth of Jesus. He grew up in wisdom. In the beginning of 1990s, a well-known American author named Alvin Toffler wrote a very famous book titled The Power Shift. I read this book with a lot of curiosity, even in my youthhood. And I really understand one thing very special about this book is he mentions about 3 kinds of powers that are existing in this world today. Which are they? First of all, your bodily power, or the so-called muscle power. But the author clearly says, even if you are very strong today, you should be aware tomorrow you can be a cancer patient. The second power that we find today is money power. But the author says today's rich man is tomorrow's pauper, the poor man. But he speaks about another kind of power that is existing in this world is the power of knowledge. And for that he uses a wonderful reference and an example. He says, think about a coconut vendor, someone who sells coconut outside. When he is selling the coconut, he is losing the coconut, and the other one who buys is gaining the coconut. But you go to a classroom, the teacher is imparting knowledge to the students. Does the teacher lose the knowledge when the students are gaining it? No. There is a mutual enrichment and communication, a new realization of your existence. That is knowledge. My brothers and sisters, it is to this knowledge which the Bible would call as wisdom that Jesus is inviting each one of us. Jesus grew up in wisdom. I was always enchanted by that prayer of Solomon. God, give me wisdom that I may differentiate between what is not correct and what is correct. Yes, what human beings need today is wisdom. Most of the time we spend our life in enriching our handsomeness and beautiful appearance. We are more worried about the externalities of our body, but we very rarely think about the inner beauty that we need to possess. Perhaps that is the most lasting beauty that we can ever hold. I'm always enchanted by the presence of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is a woman whom we call in our Indian language Amma. Someone who has given me birth. And what is her appearance? Lot of lines on her face, wrinkled skin, bent back, or rather a hunchback. She moves around. But people all over the world cry around her saying, Amma, Mother. The inner beauty that she possessed was the reason for her strength. And as a consequence, she could win hearts of the people. She could differentiate between what was wrong and what was good. She could throw her possibilities of the externality and go into the streets of Calcutta and of the whole world, proclaiming the inner beauty that she possessed in her life. I believe beauty never comes without having sufficient knowledge about who you really are. My one suggestion to all of us is, young, middle-aged and old, read more so that wisdom dawns in. One of the things that we have left behind is this concept of reading. The most important aspect of our life is to gain knowledge. Without knowing, you cannot enter into anything, even relationships. The more we read, the more wise we become. And that exactly is the choice that is left before us. My dear brothers and sisters, I was always enchanted by some of the young people who live in our midst. Earlier times, there was a kind of a thinking that if you show yourself as bookworms, that means reading and reading and reading, you will become wise. But it's enough to selectively to read. In my youthhood, even as a seminarian, one of the things that I am so happy today is that I spend every day for some reading, something different. And I have a young nephew now, my brother's son. I admire this young guy because he has a special quality of reading. Sometimes I go to his room and ask him, my dear man, get out and let's have some fun outside. The one statement that he made to me at one such encounters is this: Uncle, I need to grow more. If I want, I have other possibilities. But to read and to learn and to become more wise in my lifestyle is a choice that I have made. I was defeated, totally defeated. And the concept of relationship and commitment that he makes as a consequence of his reading and his awareness is something that is beyond imagination. Yes, my brothers and sisters, one thing I notice very specifically is that most of the time, the authors in the European as well as American world, we find one difference from the authors of our time here. Most of them write one or two books in their whole lifespan. But these books are the expressions of squeezing of their own essence and bringing it out with such confidence. They don't write books every month, but then what they write is solid enough. There is meditation, there is backing of support from the wealth of knowledge that they have gained in their life. Jesus grew up in wisdom. Let's move from mere peripheral understanding of external beauty to an inner world of interiority. The third aspect of Jesus' growth is that he grew up in favor with God. Yes, my brothers and sisters, one of the most liked sentences that I enjoy to read again and again is the sentence, root to the root. Find your base. What is the source from which you draw inspiration? What is your foundation? The foundation to which you return time and again. This exactly is that statement of the evangelist. Jesus grew up in favor with God. The fundamental root that Jesus found in his personal life and relationship is the person of his father, Abba. And he went back to him every now and then and re-energized himself from that root which is the source of his life. Think of the number of times Jesus telling his disciples, pray. Even as he went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, what did he tell them? Keep awake with me and pray with me. And this prayer dimension of his life has transformed his total personality. Jesus, before beginning a ministry, prayed. Even before raising a dead person, thanked and prayed to his Father. After the ministry, he went up to the mountains and spent time with his Father. That is the way of being in relationship. You can never imagine of a relationship without communication. Think of our own human dimension of relationship. How do we intensify the relationship with the other whom we love so much? Through communication. And when that does not happen with God, how do we think of satisfaction in a particular chosen way of life? Find the root to the root so that you would be able to become strong in your foundation. I always admire that approach of Jesus to his disciples as well. He tells them, pray. Our heavenly patron, Saint Francis de Sales, says that every day you must pray at least half an hour. But interestingly, he says also, when you have no time, pray 1 hour. My brothers and sisters, it's not about the span of time what we are talking about. It is about the desire to be alone with your foundation, your base. Can you sit every day, other than your common prayer in the chapel, along with your community members, a few minutes in silence, alone with your God and yourself. Unfortunately, most of us are afraid of silence. We are afraid of silence. I have seen when I travel in the train, some people, when they do not have anything else to read, they take the same newspaper which they have already read 3 times and read again. Because to sit alone becomes very difficult. And what about the situation today when the mobile is in the hand? We have no time even to see who is sitting near us. Are we losing our foundation? I've heard this story about the son of a rabbi. His son, who was rather very young, used to go every time into the forest. One day, the rabbi decided to follow him into the forest and to watch what he is doing there. And he saw his son going into the forest and sitting under a tree and closing his eyes and remaining in silence. He interfered. He went to him and told him, "Have I not told you many times that the same God is everywhere? Then why do you want to come to the forest?" And the son says, "Yes, my dad, I know. The same God is everywhere, but I am not the same everywhere. I need a space to be alone with my God and with myself." This is something that I have taken as a learning for myself. There were many times when I told some people, "Why do you want to go to a pilgrimage center? Why do you want to spend so much time by traveling to that place? If you go to your own church in the parish, that would be sufficient. That God who is there in that pilgrimage center is also present here." Now I do not say that anymore because I am not the same everywhere. I need a space. This is that intensification of the relationship that we are building up. One of the most important words that I would find for myself is that word called inner voice. Paulo Coelho, in his book Alchemist, very often uses this word. Inner voice. That is that cry from within. Sometimes this voice is a moaning, asking me, "Please return. Let's have some time alone so that we find the direction properly." Jesus grew up in favor with God. Finally, the final stage of the growth of Jesus is he grew up in favor with his fellow beings. You know very well, my dear sisters and brothers, among the 12 disciples of Jesus, only one mother is mentioned by the evangelists. That is the mother of the sons of Zebedee, the mother of James and John. No other mothers are ever mentioned in the Gospels. This mother is a very special mother, very loving mother. She wanted to make sure that her sons are well taken care. She is so good a mother like all our mothers. Are not our mothers so good? I have very often heard many people saying that my mother, many persons saying that my mother is the best mother in the world. I will never challenge that because that is their personal experience of a mother. And what is the speciality of this mother? Mother always wants you to grow well. How? In accordance with the vision and plan that she has for you. And that exactly is the problem. The mother of the sons of Zebedee also wanted her sons to grow. How? As she wished. One should sit at the right hand of Jesus and the other at the left hand when he is in heaven. Yes, they should say, "My sons are very good." They should say that your sons are doing so fine, wonderful. Every mother desires that. That is precisely the reason Jesus hanging on the cross entrusts a new mother to John. John, here is your mother. What is the speciality of this mother? Yes, she's a bit different. The speciality of this mother is that she reared the son, Jesus, not for herself, she reared him for the humanity. She was not calling him my son alone, he becomes your brother. That means I'm giving him for you. My sisters and brothers, it is we who make Mary a mother of sorrows. The Bible never depicts Mary crying. Surely she might have cried. But the inner voice that came from her heart is that, my son, you are accomplishing the task. I believe Mary stood under the foot of the cross like an empress, having completed her responsibility in rearing that son to make him available for the humanity and a catalyst for change in the world. Mary now is being entrusted to John by Jesus. What for? Not to take care of her, so that she becomes an example for John's own mother. The women in the world should become mothers by offering their children to the humanity. And that's where very often people say, how lucky your mother is because you are a priest or you are a religious. You are for the humanity. The nearness of the other becomes the important aspect of your life. Listen to that cry of Jesus to the women of Jerusalem. As he was carrying the cross towards Calvary, the women of Jerusalem were crying for him. He stops for a while and tells them, do not cry for me. Cry for yourself and for your children, so that they may also become like me. Yes, my brothers and sisters, this is that intimacy of commitment. Commitment that leads for service to the poor. You have to grow so that you become available for the other in sociability, especially to those people who are at the periphery. My brothers and sisters, certain times our knowledge does not permit us to come down to the level of the people and to relate with them properly. We are no more people of wisdom. We are no more wise at all just because we have intellectual knowledge. Are we able to leave behind this ghetto mindset and share the lifestyle of the poor, the people who are around us? It is said that the discovery of telephone was by Graham Bell. And he did not discover telephone in order to phone up to his family. You know why? His wife and his daughter were deaf. They could not hear. He did it for the humanity. And you know the impact of this discovery for the world today. It is for the other. We are all well aware the numerical numbers were discovered by the Arabians in the Arabian world. But very interestingly, it is believed that 0 was discovered by Indians. It's a great discovery. 0 is such an important figure. But this 0 has one problem. It begins from self and ends with self. A round that begins with self and ends with self. Totally self-centered. I'm so enchanted with that beginning of a volleyball match. They say, love all. 0-0. But love all. You love everyone. Giving up this self-centeredness. And thus, even when you fight, the other is for you. That exactly is the sporting competition. As I believe, we need to take up this cue from Jesus today. The Lord who found his root, the base in the temple, recognized his vocation with an enlightenment of realizing that the Father's house is his home, now grows up in stature, in wisdom, in favor with God and in favor with humanity. The beauty of Jesus' personality is his wholeness. Welcome, my sisters and brothers, into this world of Jesus to make ourselves wholesome and whole so that we would be able to become mature people in our times. Amen.